This slide is for those that are suicidal, for those that are hopeless, for those that feel there's no way out of what they're dealing with. I've been there more than once. Don't want to be there again, and so this really comes from a place of experience. What you have to do is, no matter how horrible you feel, physically, emotionally, mentally, in that moment, you have to accept what's going on. Any amount of resistance at that moment makes it 10 times worse. So even if it means, I feel suicidal, you might have to say that out loud and just accept it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but at least you've given yourself permission to know exactly what you feel and some room for growth and movement. When you're feeling super panicky, the best thing to do is huff out all the air in your lungs. So what you do is build up a full breath and you huff it all out from the lower abdomen as best you can several times. It's literally like pushing the panic out of the body. And this works well because people have panic attacks in cars and things like that. This is a very good technique because also then as you huff it out and you're pushing it all out, it forces you to take a very large, deep inhale. And this is key because your breath is really the rhythm at what gets you going. Now, people are going to feel corny about this, but when people are barely hanging on, and I've had many in my office, go in the mirror, and every waking hour you say to yourself, I love and accept myself and my body unconditionally. You may not be able to look at yourself, but start by saying it, and eventually, hopefully as the hours pass, you can look at yourself in the mirror. You have to make a connection with yourself, because when you're hanging on by a thread, it's because you're so disconnected. You feel like there's no point, you're numb, you might feel I'm going to die anyway if I do all this stuff. I mean, I don't know where your thoughts go. Mine went everywhere. So the point is that you need to make some connection with yourself, and this is a great thing to do. And I'm telling you, if you're consistent with this, you will feel much better in just 1 to 2 weeks if you're consistent with that. The tapping technique, critical time to use this, very critical time. Another thing, and this is a tough thing to talk about, but I have had clients in my office where I knew they were half in and half out. Half of them wanted to die and half wanted to stay. And you have to make a choice, because if you're half in and half out, your body will decline and it will crumble. So this is not a place, this is a place of resistance. This is not a healthy place to be. And as intense as this subject matter is, you must make a choice. And I have had people that have chosen the opposite, and they are gone now. And I support that for what they did. They didn't do it through suicide, but for whatever the way that they allowed the body to decline and couldn't handle it, that is their choice. My whole point is that I want you to be here because everybody has a place, a purpose. I do feel they have the capacity to heal, but this is one of the stuck points in why people may not feel a shift when they're trying to do everything possible is because they're half in and half out. So please be aware of this if you're there, and please make the choice to stay. You have to find gratitude in the smallest of wins. And like I said, it might just be as simple as that you got out of bed that day. That's a win. Put it this way, anything you do in life is gravy. You know, when I get into worth here, we have very weird system of feeling that it's about how much we make, what we drive, whether we're healthy or not. And our worth is based on our existence. So I really feel that everything and anything else you do in life is successful, and it's accomplishing something. And we like to compare ourselves to either people on television or people we know, and there's no room for comparison. That is a very self-destructive cycle. So find the smallest of gratitude in what you were able to do that day and be okay with that. And know that as you do that, you can build on it. I put a thing here about using mind mechanics. And what I'm saying here is, I don't care what you believe in. Some people believe in God, might be the planet, universal energy, your guides, whatever feels right to you. But use them. Use that energy and ask them out loud for guidance. Like if you have a certain thought pattern you can't break, or you have a very scary sensation in your body and it's terrifying you to a point that you don't know how to function and it's so distracting. Ask them out loud to send you people, places, and things to help lift that, or possibly anything possible to help you, because it can come in very weird ways. And so you might get a new thought pattern that helps you move through it, grab onto it, and repeat it. You might get some weird abstract thing about, I don't know, having the color purple in your bedroom or something, and then helps you move out of it. So allow yourself to be kind of creative and freeform here, but you know, I'm very spiritual, and I do feel very connected to, I can say God, I can say everything, and all means the same to me in essence, but I use that energy. I don't know all the how-tos, and I don't want to know all the how-tos. So when I'm really stuck, and I know a lot of tools, and I know a lot of techniques, but when I'm really stuck, and I don't know how to move through anything, I just kind of surrender, and I ask out loud for some guidance, and I trust what I hear. I trust what I feel, and I employ it. And when I do, I'm able to move out of that rut, because you can be stuck in ruts for months. So don't be afraid to use your spiritual connection here to ask for some guidance, and trust when you get the answer, it's not about your critical mind and your conscious mind diffusing that and playing devil's advocate. That's not the point here. This is about when you are in the rawest of raw states, to open yourself up and surrender and allow that information and guidance, because I feel we all have it. We're all connected. We all have access to it. So really important to work with. Nature, a great way. Simple thing. If you're even in a wheelchair, then be rolled out to maybe where you can look at some trees and, you know, birds flying around or listening to a fountain. But, you know, if you can actually get out there, then hug a tree. Either lie on the grass in a blanket or put your bare feet on the grass or stand, because it will pull the stress out. It will ground you. It will help you feel connected to something. And this is key, because when you're hanging on, you are disconnected. And that can be a very scary place, and it can be a very place where you isolate and withdraw. And if it goes deep enough, then sometimes people make some really poor choices at that place. If you cannot get the mind to slow down, it's obsessive, it's unrelenting, it's negative, then use some help. If you're not already on, if you're on pharmaceutical medication, then you can't use these if they're anti-anxiety, but if you are not on them, you can use things like L-theanine, which is a green tea extract. You can take a 100 milligram, like one at like maybe 10 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock, and that will create a very even tone to quiet the mind down. Gabatone Active is just an even stronger formula and more complex, and what they put in that, we've mentioned this before, for anxiety, and you can play with the dose. It can be, you know, one a couple times a day, but it's the same thing. You don't want to take it all at once. You want to spread it throughout the day to get that evenness of creating more GABA balance in the brain, because GABA is the neurotransmitter that calms us, that helps us focus, helps us sit in our skin. So this is a very good thing to use when you're having really, really tough times. And I'm going to hit this home. You are worthy because you exist. This is why I crumbled. When I grew up, I didn't feel I was worthy. Those are the messages I learned from my parents. I'm not blaming them, but I'm telling you this is the message that I internalized. And I felt I had to overcompensate and be everything to everyone all the time. And I never felt I was worth my existence. And that's why I had MS. That's why my body crumbled. That's why I made very poor choices in what I ate and what I thought. Because I didn't understand at that time that I was worthy because I existed. And I'll give you a very good example. I had been already dealing with 3.5 years of MS. And it was at that time that I was moving through my psychological layers. And this was very intense for me. I think this was even darker than when I had my near-death experience and started out with the immune response attacks. And I had gone through an incident that had exacerbated a phobia, that I was spiraling down with MS. Long story short is that my grandmother had choked on a piece of turkey. I was very close to this grandmother. You remember, this is the one that was always reading the Inquirer. And I had taken on her fear. She choked on this piece of turkey. I took on this fear that I couldn't swallow. It came up a month later, unbeknownst to me, out of nowhere. It was very weird. But it was a catalyst to forcing me to purge my emotional self that I had suppressed for many years. So the key is that I understood it later, not then. But between the combination of dealing with this phobia, here I am wilting away, and then I have MS. I got so far down in the spiral because I had insomnia, I had all kinds of things go on, that I tried to take my life. Now, spiritually, the way I believe, you have to understand how much agony I was in, because I believed I have to come around and do this again. So to get to that place, talk about disconnection, it's as dark as it gets. So I'm going through a couple halfway houses. I was in lockdown for 13 days. I had to go to some halfway houses because I was too fragile to function. And I remember sitting on the edge of the bed. I was in the second place I was in. And I hadn't really spoken to God or felt connected because I felt like, hey, I'm a good person. I don't deserve this. So I was like anti-everything at that point. But I had gone through a lot of maltreatment in these halfway houses because they care more about saving a life, so they'll do very negative and intense things to make you fight for your life. It feels very cruel, but I understand it now. And I sat on the edge of the bed one day, and I looked at myself, and I started to just say out loud, and I used different French than this, but I said, God, I'm really messed up right now, but I don't deserve this treatment anymore. And as simple as that sounds, it was so profound because it was in that moment where I had no money. I never knew if I'd see reality again. I never knew if I would go home again, be able to work again, function again. And I realized in that moment that I was worth my existence because I was just alive, that nothing else mattered. For so many years I had been trying to please people. So it was in that very crystal moment that I realized that existence equated to my worth. And I will tell you that that profound knowingness that was so deeply embedded in that moment shifted me, where I moved out of that place within 2 weeks of being in that halfway house. And within a month, I had fully, my DNA, and I think all the work that I had done throughout my whole life, of the 4 years of working towards beating the MS, it was like lock and key. Like everything I had done had finally now found where it needed to go. And within, I'd say 3 months later than that, I never looked back, and I never had another MS symptom. It was so critical. So I'm sorry to spend a lot of time on this, but this is a very important point because so many people walk around and they don't feel that they're worth being on the planet. And if you don't, there is no way to get well. It doesn't matter what you take and what you do. So the key here is to realize there's nothing you have to prove. There's nothing you have to be for anybody. You just need to be. Okay. Anything there, Karen?
That was just so, you just put it so well, I think, that we should just leave it at that.
Okay. Perfectionism. Another one of my